Hello, everyone. Welcome to the TubCast. It is pre-recorded again because I am once again going out of town. How's it going, Lilith?
Hello, Dev, and hello, pre-recorded chat. Which there is no chat. It's
Nope.
comments.
You know what I've noticed? It's 2 for 2 now. That whenever I have to go out of town and we have to pre-record a show, it's about a shooting. So,
Yeah.
so maybe if I just don't go anywhere anymore, all the shootings will stop. So today we are talking about the Robb Elementary School shooting, which took place in, is it Uvalde, Texas? I've never heard of this place before. I mean, I assume it's like a small town or something.
I think it's like a county. I've never been to Texas, but that's actually do our research.
Yeah, it's a small town. So
Yes, it's a city and county seat of Uvalde County, Texas.
at least that's
So
what
it's a city
Wikipedia
and a
says.
county.
You should go to Texas. Get out of California. Get out of California. You know, there's a lot of like pro-trans areas of Houston or Dallas or Austin. You
There
can get out of there.
is,
Yeah.
but like there are also like laws trying to fuck up like the rights and stuff. So I don't know.
I mean, yes, but in terms of just like a practical, non-moral based discussion, they're not doing it for adults, so you should be fine.
Not yet.
I don't think they'll go that far. I think that'll be some pretty significant breaches of the Constitution. That I don't think they'll go. You know what? Here, I'll just go on record saying I don't think they're going to go that far, and if they do, well, then I'll owe someone $20. I'll owe you
You
twenty
owe me
dollars.
twenty
I'll owe
dollars.
you $20. That's the bet. Okay, that's the bet. But anyway, there was a shooting, and it was done by a student, 18-year-old Salvador Rolando Ramos. Ramos? Dude, I can't pronounce anything Spanish whatsoever to say.
I think it's like Ramos. Salvador Ramos, I would say.
Jeez, we shouldn't be making jokes about this. There's like dead kids. God damn it.
Oh shit.
Usually okay. Usually when I sit down to have a tubcast, I'm having fun. So I got to get into serious mode here. Okay. Okay. So there was a school shooting. It was the third deadliest American school shooting after the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007 and the Sandy Hook shooting in 2012. And those are both shootings that I'm old enough to remember happening. So let's go over the timeline of events just so we know exactly what's going on here. And there's actually multiple timelines. We're going to use this one from the Texas Tribune. And it says what we know minute by minute about how the Uvalde shooting and police response unfolded. So in September of 2021, before the shooter turned 18 years old, he asked his sister for help to buy a gun, and his sister refused. So that was, months and months and months. That was last year, months before the shooting. Then March 1 to 3 of 2022, the gunman sends a message on Instagram about guns. He has apparently a group chat on Instagram. He wants to buy a gun, and he's talking about just getting guns. March 14th, he posts again on Instagram. He just says, 10 more days. A user comments, "Are you going to shoot up the school or something?" The shooter replies, "No, and stop asking dumb questions, and you'll see." Then May 16th to 20th, 2022, the shooter turns 18, the legal age for purchasing a rifle in Texas, on May 16th. The shooter then legally purchases 2 AR rifles from a local federal firearm licensee on 2 days, May 17th and May 20th. He also buys 375 rounds. So he has 2. Is he dual wielding these things? Like, did he actually just go in full Rambo?
I don't think we know
Mm.
just yet.
So, May 24th, 2022, the day of the shooting. At around 11 a.m., the shooter sends private Facebook messages to a girl in Germany, and he says he's going to shoot his grandmother. He shoots his grandmother in the face, who then calls the police. Wait, the grandma survived the shot to the face and called the police?
Yep, she survived.
Jesus. It's the first time. You know more about this than me this time, Lilith, so Jesus. Okay, all right. Crazy. The shooter steals his grandmother's vehicle and then drives from his home to the Robb Elementary School, which is a 2-mile drive away.
Imagine that though, a tough old lady living
Yeah,
her whole life, only to get shot by her, I guess, monster of a grandson.
yeah. There's like a lot of like really metal old people who survived craziness. You see that a lot,
Yeah,
So I'm not surprised
like tough,
exactly.
tough grannies, tough grandpas.
Yeah. 11:28 a.m., the shooter arrives at the school. The shooter crashes the vehicle in a ditch near the school. He fires his gun at two male witnesses who began approaching the crash from a nearby funeral home. The witnesses flee and call 911. So I guess he didn't manage to kill them.
He arrives at school at 11:28 and
Yeah,
immediately starts shooting.
and he crashes his vehicle. So like this guy's not off to a good start. So
Yeah,
like he's
it's not exactly a subtle thing
yeah.
he's doing. What you'll see here is that he's pretty much been allowed free reign for a very long time.
11:30 a.m. A teacher at the school makes a 911 call reporting the crash and seeing the shooter, knowing that he has a gun. The shooter walks towards the school, climbs the fence into the parking lot, and shoots at the school several times. By 11:31, the shooter is still walking through the parking lot. He reaches the last row of vehicles in the parking lot, firing his rifle throughout. Police arrive at the funeral home at this time. A school district police officer speeds in the direction of a person they think is the man with the gun, reported by the teacher, but drives past the gunman and heads to the back of the school, mistaking a teacher for the shooter. Wow. That's a pretty big fuck up right there.
Yep, they almost caught the guy.
Yep.
Like 2 minutes after he starts shooting, like they could have gotten him.
11:33 a.m. The shooter enters the school through a back door which a teacher had propped open. He shoots at least 100 rounds into classrooms 111 and 112, which are connected. Jesus. Now, I think I heard a person who was in one of these classrooms, like a child, who actually managed to survive. She talked about in an interview that was then, like it wasn't on TV, it was given to, I think, a police officer and then later retold by the newscaster, because they're not going to put, a 10-year-old or whatever on TV.
Yeah, was it the one where she had to smear blood on herself to
Yeah, that
pretend
was
to be
that
dead?
one. Yeah, that was that one.
The 11-year-old Mia Cirio was in that fourth grade classroom that we've heard so much about with Miss Garcia and Miss Mireles. She said they were watching Lilo and Stitch because it was the end of the school year, they'd finished their lessons, and she said one of her teachers got an email that there was a shooter in the building and went to the door, and he was right there. And they made eye contact.
The shooter made eye contact with the
teacher, and then he shot out the window in the door. And then Mia says it just happened all so fast. He backed the teacher into the classroom, and he made eye contact with the teacher again, looked her right in the eye, and said, "Good night," and then shot her and killed her.
He said good night before he shot her.
Good night. And then it happened pretty fast after that as well. He started open firing in the classroom. He hit the other teacher, a lot of Mia's friends. At that point, Mia was hit by fragments of the bullets. You could even see them yesterday. I mean, on her back, on her shoulders, the back of her head.
The shooter then, she says, went into the adjoining classroom.
Yeah, so he went through this door to the adjoining classroom, and at that point, Mia could hear screams. She heard a lot more gunfire. And then she said she heard music. She thinks it was the gunman that put it on. He started blasting sad music. And I asked her, like, what was that? Like, what kind of music? What do you mean by that? And she just said, it sounded like I want people to die music.
She said she heard music. She said it sounded like I want people to die music. What did Mia do then?
So she had a friend next to her that she was pretty sure was already dead and was laying on the ground bleeding out. And she put her hands in her friend's blood and then smeared it, she said, all over her body. She wanted to look like she was dead. She was scared that the gunman was going to come back through that adjoining door back into the classroom, and she wanted to be able to play dead.
So the next one is 11:35 p.m.
Yes.
Uvalde police enters the school. 3 Uvalde police officers rush to the same door that the gunman used to enter, which was closed. They enter and receive grazing wounds from the gunman. They retreat. Later, 4 more officers, including a deputy with the Uvalde County Sheriff Office, enters the school. So they actually enter the school quite fast after he did.
Yes. And I don't know if they were wearing body armor, but they encountered some resistance and then they left. I mean, no one wants to get shot, so, like, fair enough, but this is still your job, you know? Like, I'm not saying rush into bullets. I'm saying, like, maybe you have to go back out and put on some body armor and go in again or something, you know? I don't exactly
Yes.
know what the situation is.
In 11:37 a.m., gunman fires 16 more rounds. 11:43 a.m., it's a little bit after.
Yep.
Robb Elementary School in Uvalde police post on Facebook. Robb Elementary, they just announced that they're closing down due to gunshots in the area. The students and staff are safe in the building. Safe.
All right.
Safe being a relative term. In the same time, Uvalde Police Department posts on Facebook, large police presence at Robb Elementary. We ask the public to avoid the area.
It's not just the safe thing. I gotta ask, who still uses fucking Facebook in 2022?
Yeah, well, old people.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm
Yeah.
assuming parents, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
So, 11:44 a.m., police officers are inside. Police with the city of Uvalde and the local school district are inside the school. They hear gunfire, are shot at, move back, and get cover. Initial officers are there and receive gunfire, therefore do not make entry. Officers call everyone in the area for additional resources, tactical teams, equipment, specialty equipment, body armor, precision riflemen, and negotiators. They're evacuating students and teachers during this time. And this is an interesting thing because I don't know if this one goes into it, but one of the students actually got killed because of the officers were calling out for them.
I also want to point out the negotiators. They asked for negotiators, and the main reason that they asked for negotiators is they thought it was a hostage situation. They didn't think that this was an active shooter who was roaming from room to room killing kids. They thought that this was somebody who had hunkered down, barricaded himself. So they were kind of coming at it from a wrong angle, and they were preparing for a different thing than what was actually happening. Because these are actually the right moves to make if you're dealing with someone who's taken hostages and wants to negotiate. This is not the right move to make if you're dealing with somebody who just wants to kill a bunch of people.
11:54 a.m. Onlookers start filming 21 minutes after the shooter enters the school. An onlooker streams live video showing the parents begging the police to enter the school.
Okay, I'm going to see if this will actually play still. Facebook likes to ban these things, so I'm just going to quickly play it and see if it won't full screen.
Cops are right here. Bro, there's a fucking shooting at the school, and these fucking cops are telling everybody to leave, dude. While everybody's here trying to pick up their fucking kids. They're saying that the shooter's in a new building. I don't know if they had a new building. This is fucking bullshit, bro.
Yeah, it does seem like people are just angry with the police at this point. Because they from the outside, they're watching the police not go in. They're watching the police take their time. They're there to try to get their kids out, and the police won't.
They're not allowed in.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. You don't want like parents getting shot up either.
Obviously.
Like I understand, but like at this point, the public's starting to turn on the police.
At 12:03 p.m., police continue to arrive, and the student calls 911 from room 1124 a minute and 23 seconds and identifies as herself in a whisper. Meanwhile, as many as 19 officers are positioned in the school's hallway. And I believe this is the same student that got killed. 12:10 p.m., student calls back. Student calls 911 again, says multiple people are dead. 12:13 p.m., student calls 911 again. 12:15, Border Patrol tactical units arrived. Now these are the people who eventually took down the shooters.
Right. So I'm just kind of curious. Border Patrol. This is a town that's close to the border with Mexico. Did they just ask for whatever help they could get, and these guys were close by, so they came over?
I think that could be it. It could be that the Border Patrol tactical unit was like the most heavily armed
that was
unit
nearby? Yeah, because I mean, this small town is not going to have like a crazy amount of SWAT or something. But if there's a Border Patrol unit, just down the road, they could easily ask them for help. That makes sense.
And 12:16, student calls 911 once again for a fourth time, saying 8 or 9 students are alive. School announces active shooter on campus at 12:17, a minute after. Onlookers and parents beg for action. At some point during the standoff, onlookers beg police to charge the school, according to Associated Press.
We will have to come back to this point because there's a lot to talk about, but We'll
Yeah.
get there. We'll get there.
12:19, another student calls 911. This is a different one. A student in room 111, which is the first room, calls and hangs up when another student tells her to. So there were still survivors in room 111.
Yep.
12:21 p.m., gunman fires again. Authorities say he was believed to be at the classroom door. On a 911 call from a student, 3 gunshots can be heard. The same student calls back for 21 seconds and is told to stay on the line quietly. 12:43 p.m., gunman shoots the door.
Were these doors secured? Do we know? Like, with like really big, thick doors that could actually take some bullets?
I'm not so sure that tells that, but if the gunman is having some trouble getting through the door, then
Yeah.
maybe.
I have memories of, in my elementary school, the doors to all the classrooms, they were thick and made of metal, and I think they were made to withstand both bullets and fire, if that ever ended up being a problem. Never did, thankfully, but it seemed to be
That's
like a
actually the
normal thing.
way it was in Taiwan, actually.
Yeah?
Yes, there's like well, the more better funded schools, they have like metal doors that just like they can lock really securely, so the people don't hear stuff. 12:46 p.m. I can hear the police next door. 12:47. Please send the police now.
That's them. That's that kid on the 911 call, yeah.
And finally, 12:50 p.m. Border Patrol kills gunman. Shots are heard on the student's call. A Border Patrol tactical unit officer breaches the room using a janitor's key and kills the gunman.
Regarding the gunman's death, there's a bit more information than is present here on the timeline. The gunman was actually locked in a closet. He had hid himself. And when they entered the classroom, he kicked the door of the closet open and began opening fire at the tactical unit. And when he got shot by the same officer that he shot. So they both shot each other. But still, it almost sounds like a movie, you know, like The Last Stand, where the guy jumps out of the closet and just begins opening fire again, and then you take him down. That's what it seems like.
At 1:06 p.m., police announces shooter is in custody.
In custody.
I guess if you want to call it body bag, but still slap a cuff on a corpse, I guess. But hey.
So it turns out that 19 students died.
And 2 teachers.
Yeah, and the students were between ages 9 and 11, and the teachers were both in their 40s because they were teaching 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades. 2 police officers were injured, but they survived. The grandmother survived.
So you'll notice a theme in the timeline. There's a lot of kids risking their lives calling the cops.
Yes.
And them not receiving any help.
That does seem to be one of the recurring themes of this story, is that they were calling cops. They were on the line with 911. Now, I don't know if you know how a 911 operator's job works, but all they can do is, like, they can request the cops show up, but they can't do anything beyond that because they're, like, away in a call center or something. So, like,
yeah,
they're calling 911, and 911's like, okay, I've sent it out. The cops are going to be there any minute, and, like, then the cops took their time. And it's not the 911 person's fault, and it's certainly not the kid's fault, but it might be the police officer's fault, and we're going to have to look into that.
Texas officers waited more than an hour to confront the school shooter as kids kept calling 911.
And the governor, he said he was misled about law enforcement's response, and he's livid about it. You know, I would be too if this were the case. Students trapped inside a classroom with a gunman repeatedly called 911 during this week's attack. One of them pleaded, "Please send the police now," and officers waited more than an hour to breach the classroom, after following the gunman into the building. So, the commander at the scene believed that the 18-year-old gunman was barricaded inside adjoining classrooms at Robb Elementary School, and the children were no longer at risk. It was the wrong decision, he said. It's like I said earlier. They believed they were dealing with a hostage situation where he's kind of holed up. He's going to want to negotiate. They're bringing in negotiators. But they were actually dealing with a mass shooting incident. And the detail that this article goes into seems to be pretty consistent, that the police believed they were dealing with a hostage situation, but they were actually dealing with an active shooter, and they just made the wrong decisions. Which is why, for example, there were parents outside telling the police, go in there. Frustrated onlookers urged police officers to charge into the school. Go in there, go in there, women shouted at the officers soon after the attack began. There were more of them, there was just one of him, and the police weren't doing it. And some people were saying, oh, the police were lazy, they're being terrible, they're cowardly, whatever the case may be. But it seems to be that what actually happened is they had just pegged the situation wrong. That's not good. It's actually very, very bad. But it's not the same as, like... There was a narrative on social media for a while that the police were cowardly, and I don't think that was the case. They just made, like, a terrible mistake.
I think so, too. If this is a miscalculation on their part, it's a huge, huge miscalculation.
I'm not all aboard the ACAB train, but I'm also not all aboard the Thin Blue Line train either. It's my opinion that a functioning society needs police, and those police need to be able to use force when necessary, but also, if they use it improperly, be appropriately held accountable. That's what a functioning society needs. You can't have no cops, you can't hate cops, but you also can't simply let cops abuse their powers willy-nilly. That being said, if you're going to spend this much fucking money on your police force, and, worst case scenario, they're going to be too cowardly to run into the school, then what the fuck are you, why are you giving them this money? It's completely fucking useless. Best case scenario, if they made a mistake, everyone makes mistakes, but, this is a pretty fucking big mistake to make. Someone needs to lose their job over this. This is a horrendous mistake to make.
Yeah, whoever made the call that this is a hostage situation needs to be sacked. I feel like nobody will, probably, but...
I don't know. I could see, the police chief losing his job or something. I could see that happening. Or, a local politician, taking the bullet. Not an actual bullet, but you know what I mean.
Falling on a spear.
Yeah. And it did end up turning out that, a bunch of parents were saying, we should just fucking run in and do it ourselves, because the cops aren't doing it. The cops aren't saving our kids. We should just fucking rush the school ourselves and try to get our kids out of there. One woman actually did that. She was arrested by the cops for trying to break into the scene, but she managed to get away from the cops. She hopped the fence, she broke into the school, then she got her kids out safely. She actually managed to save her kids. So, good for her. At the same time, there was an off-duty border officer who was getting his hair cut at a barbershop nearby. He saw what was going on, or he heard what was going on somehow. What he managed to do is he took the shotgun from the barber shop and ran into the school to help out. So, these are people doing more than the cops were. It seems like there was just a massive institutional failure at this point, somehow, of the police. There's one clip of a Texas police lieutenant saying that the police were reluctant to engage the gunman because they could have been shot by him. And it's yeah, but that's why you're fucking paid. And I'm not saying this to be callous. I'm not saying that your lives don't have value. I'm saying there has to be somebody who does this kind of really dangerous work. And you might die, but that's why you're here. And if you don't want to be there, then get the fuck out and do something else and stop taking this money from the rest of us, and somebody else can take your place.
You want to know who did get shot?
Who got shot?
Who did? The teachers and the students. The
Yes.
teachers literally tried to put themselves in danger to save the children.
Yes. And they were a lot less equipped to deal with this guy than a fucking police officer is.
Yep, they still gave their lives trying to stop this evil man.
And since you said the phrase evil man, we should probably move on to the next micro topic. Some people thought that this guy was trans for a while. Was that that was a story, a side story to this, right?
Yes, there was some pictures that came out of, I believe, Pole, with somebody who looks kind of like the shooter, but with longer hair and them wearing dresses and stuff. And it's just it's actually two different people, and one of them was a Poltard.
So
which was later revealed.
Someone on Pole who looks like this guy was just I'll just cross-dress or something and get pictures taken of me.
Oh, they posted like older pictures of themselves cross-dressing, I think. And I think that story spun out of control, and several other transgender people's pictures were posted claiming that this was the shooter.
You've seen the meme where whenever there's like a shooting, you see like there's usually a cartoon of like a leftist holding his fingers crossed, just saying like, "Please let the shooter be white. Please let the shooter be white." And then when it's like a black guy, they're like, "Fuck." Everyone at this point, they seem to just really, really want to peg whatever next shooter there is. There's always a next shooter. They want to peg the next shooter with something, with some kind of ideology. You know, if it turns out that they're a white guy and they wrote some kind of weird manifesto, oh, they're clearly a neo-Nazi. We can blame this on the Republicans. If it turns out that it's like a black guy just committing some kind of inner city violence, look at what the Democrats have done to our cities. You know, there's always a push to make it about a wider issue. And this time, it was trying to make people think that this guy was trans. Because then they could link that to the LGBT lobby and radicalization. You could start blaming LGBT people as like a political class rather than as individuals. Because this is what happens with every single fucking shooter nowadays in the United States.
It really does feel like everybody just wants the shooter to be the group they don't like. And I guess in this case, it's trannies.
Yeah.
There was some quite prominent people who either got fooled by this, like Marjorie Taylor Greene is the congresswoman, is one of the big names.
Yeah, the article about her reads that she's trying to push a baseless transgender rumor about the Uvalde shooter, and she joins a line of far-right Republicans falling for 4chan misinformation. It used to be just like 4chan trolling, now it's misinformation, because of course it is. In 2022. Green says that the shooter was a cross-dressing loner. So when she's doing like a trans thing, is she conflating cross-dressers with trans people?
Oh, they do it all the time. Like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene would care too much about the distinction.
I mean, I've seen people on like the other side do that too, where they try to claim cross-dressing as being a trans thing, and if you're a cross-dresser, then you must be trans. But that's not what's happening here. I think it's just her being ignorant.
Paul Gosar of Arizona claimed the shooter was trans.
It's a transsexual, leftist, illegal alien named Salvatore Ramos. It's your kind of trash. Okay, Jesus.
So
was he even an illegal
alien part?
Yeah.
It's just in order for proof, like, oh, this is a group I hate, and we're just gonna lump them together. There isn't even, I think he's even an American citizen too, right? He's not even an illegal alien. And Candace Owens also commented on that, where she then backtracks, where she says, "Oh, I never posted their picture."
She never posted it? Did she post it and then they take it away, or?
Oh, she tweeted about it. What's driven an 18-year-old to murder innocent children? I don't know, but judging by the photos of him cross-dressing, we can assume that there were plenty of signs that he was mentally disturbed and abused by adults in his life. Societal cowardice ignored those plenties of signs. So, what she's saying is cross-dressing is signs that somebody would shoot up a place.
It sounds like she's been watching too many 1980s horror movies where the killer was always like the cross-dresser.
Yep. She pretty much doubled down by saying, FYI, the media has still not debunked the photo of the Texas shooter wearing female clothes, to which I was referring. They're trying to conflate it with the obvious internet hoax photos featuring a guy in skirt in front of a trans flag.
She's really trying to say that, like, even if all the other photos are fake, this one that I posted was real, and he truly did wear a skirt. It's like, does it fucking matter? God.
It doesn't, but she's just so focused on it.
Even if there are the occasional high-profile trans person that does some kind of, like, breaks some kind of law, it clearly means not all trans people do that. Just like not all black people do it. Just like not all white people do it. Just like not all anybody does it. There's nothing intrinsic to any of these groups that leads to criminality.
It's just like, oh, I hate white people, so I want the villain of the week to be white. I hate trans people, so I want the villain of the week to be a cross-dresser, which is the same thing in my mind. Which they would say. No, it's just stop making it be about your political agenda.
Man, it happens with every shooting. People just try to jump on it and like try to make it about their thing, because it gives them a whole bunch of good feeling upvotes on the internet. Uh,
It gives them lots of updates.
Everyone needs to log the fuck off. And another angle regarding this whole event is that people, for some reason, they're heavily fed posting about this shooting. Sarah Jong, a person who is absolutely ridiculous, and I did a video on her years ago about how ridiculous that she is. But Sarah Jong, she is apparently pushing some kind of conspiracy about how the police scanner, the official archive of the police scanner, is missing 18 minutes of audio. And it's like, well, maybe the police are trying to cover up just how badly they fucked up. That's entirely possible. They asked on 4chan, how the fuck does a high school student who was bullied for being poor afford nearly 4K worth of guns? He committed the shooting just days after his birthday. There are none of those rifles in any stores near him, meaning that he didn't buy those guns on his birthday like they claimed. So somehow he ordered them online. It was 5 days before he turned 18. He went and picked it up the day he turned 18, paid for it, and then committed the shooting. So people are like saying, how did he get these guns? This is all a setup, guys. It has to be the feds. It has to be the CIA grooming another youngster to shoot up another school. Because, you know, the current meme right now is that if there's not enough people who are projected to vote Democrat, the CIA or the FBI will like groom a bunch of kids into shooting up schools to get them more Democrat oriented. I've seen that a whole bunch on Twitter recently, and I'm like, come the fuck on, guys. Not everything is a CIA plot, okay?
Lots of people, when these stories come out, they want to immediately jump to the conspiracy.
Yeah, man, you know what's just weird? Like, this is more about the last shooter that
Yeah.
we did a couple weeks ago than this one, but it probably applies to this one in some way that we'll figure out in the future. But the Buffalo shooter that we did a couple of Tubcasts ago, everyone who is out here saying stuff about the Great Replacement and how white people need to start fighting back and all of this stuff, as soon as someone actually does something, they're like, oh, this guy's obviously a Fed. He couldn't actually believe the shit that we've been saying constantly and that we want to happen. No, he's a Fed. He has to be groomed by the Feds. And it's like, you know, maybe not. Maybe this is the natural end result of your ideas, guys.
I'm not saying everybody's going to be like, oh, look at these ideas and they immediately go out and do it. But there are mentally unhinged people who will, for the lack of better words, get groomed for that.
I think they'll say, though, that the people who groomed him online, they were also just Feds in disguise. They were pretending to be fellow poll posters or something, but nope, they were just secretly Feds. And it's like, come on, guys, not everything that makes your movement look bad is a Fed. I think the last thing to make note of regarding the Robb Elementary School shooting is that details about this guy are actually starting to come out now. So first of all, his mother comes out and says, listen, I want the innocent children who died to forgive her for raising her son. I know he had his reasons for doing what he did. This might sound monstrous, but it's his mother. I have a feeling that any mother in this situation would feel so terrible and so conflicted. Like it's her kid, you know. I don't blame her for being like, please forgive him. It's kind of a heartless thing for her to say, but I understand, you know. Like it's the guy's mom. So I'm just gonna let her go off and do it and say what she's gonna say and do what she's gonna do. Because I get it, even though I'm sure, like, if the parents of the dead kids heard that, they would be outraged. I also understand that. It's just, I can understand her point of view, because she's also devastated that she raised a son who turned out like this, you know? So I'm not going to judge. I'm just going to understand that this is how it is.
I can't imagine what it must be like to hear that your kid did this.
Yeah.
To frickin' elementary school children.
I'm actually wondering, he lived with his grandmother, but the mother's still alive, so I wonder if there was some kind of, like, a strange relationship, or if something happened, like, in the past there. I guess maybe it'll come out in the future. Also, some classmates came out and said that he was apparently violent towards women. That was a part of his personality. There are people who knew him saying that he was dating a woman for a while, and that they broke up, and then he was absolutely terrible to her. He would get violent, he would lose his temper. He would try to get into fights. Like, this is just a kid who seemed to, you know, it's not surprising that he did something like this, basically. And then probably the craziest thing of all is that there was an older video of him that was dug up showing him holding a bag of dead cats, which is just like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
Yeah, what the fuck, man?
maybe this is actually a decent argument for some kind of background check for guns. I don't know.
I
mean,
don't know if the background checks would pick that up, but
You don't think-
Jesus.
maybe not. But like, yeah, if you're going around with a fucking bag of dead cats, there's clearly something wrong with you.
You should not have access to guns. I mean, I'm very pro-gun, but like, I draw the line at people holding bags of dead cats.
And yeah, it finally did come out that the shooter was arrested years ago, and he had talked about this plan publicly. The authorities knew about it. They just didn't manage to stop him in time.
The shooter was arrested years ago, 4 years ago, for having this plan, for basically saying, you know, when I'm a senior in 2022, I'm going to shoot up a school. And this was 4 years ago they apprehended. So something fell out between the cracks between then and now to allow this to happen. We need to shake out all the facts. We need to figure out what happened, where the holes, and we need to make sure it doesn't happen again. But if law enforcement, identified him 4 years ago as a threat, we need to figure out why he wasn't, how he got removed from that.
So, Congressman, I want to make sure we make this point clear. You're saying there's an arrest report, an engagement with the police 4 years ago where they had identified he'd made a prediction he was going to do something like this in this very year?
Yes. So 4 years ago, him and a friend, and I want to look into the details. Hey, where is that guy at? What is he doing? Because there's a lot of copycats out there, and I just want to make sure that the threat is completely over. So 4 years ago, he came out and said, he was saying that he was going to shoot up a school in his senior year in 2022.
Did he write this down? Did he write this down? Did he post it?
I don't know the exact details, but the police arrested him, and they actually submitted a press release on that, stating, hey, this is what is happening. So they're very transparent in that manner. I don't know what happened between then and now, but I mean, he's saying this 4 years ago that he's good. And many of these shooters come out and say it well ahead of time. Yeah. It's not a surprise. And if you ask the people that he worked with, or anyone that knew him in school, it was not a surprise to anyone that this young man was a danger to everyone.
Yeah, Congressman, to follow up on that, the local authorities have said that he doesn't have an adult criminal record, but that there may be a juvenile record. Those are oftentimes sealed and not available for public consumption.
So at this point, I think the feds have decided to look into how the police department responded. I think the state government is looking into it. I just think that a whole bunch of heat is about to descend upon the Uvalde Police Department for how they handled this situation, for having that SWAT team that, for whatever reason, didn't go in, and they had to call in the Border Patrol, which was some miles away, to come to the town and do the job. I think the next few, weeks maybe, who knows how long these kind of things take, but we will see in the near future probably something happen to the police department of this town. Maybe the sheriff loses his job, maybe some local politician gets sacked. I think someone's gonna see their head roll for this, because this was a monumental fuck up.
And like all things, whenever things like this happen, there's always going to be huge calls of gun control. But looking at the way the police handled this today, I don't know. I don't think the police are reliable for when it comes to saving your life or your kid's life.
I mean, at least not in this town, they weren't.
Yeah.
The problem with that kind of view is like that the bad police really get like a giant spotlight shown on them, but the good police, they never get praised. It's like, oh, that's how it should be, and so it's just kind of normal when a cop does a good job. So, I mean, I don't know about that, but I understand why everyone's angry. Like, they should be, obviously.
Although it's true that they will say that they're not obligated to run into the school and save their children.
Yeah, that's fucking bullshit. They're absolutely obligated.
Yeah, they are.
That's what they get paid for. That's why they're here. Do you recall that situation in New York a few years back where even though the motto of the department is protect and serve, a judge ended up ruling that the cops don't actually have to protect and serve? Like, that was fucking ridiculous to me.
Can I sue them for false advertising?
Yeah, like, I'm not an NCAP, I don't like the idea of just everything being private police force. We had that conversation with the Econo Boy last week over ANCAP stuff. I don't believe in the whole private police force thing. But, like, man, if you're going to be here to do this job, like, do your fucking job or get the fuck out. Like, I'm so done with this kind of officer failure. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of all the things that we have regarding the Robb Elementary School shooting. I think we'll see stuff unfold in the weeks and months to come regarding the actions of the Uvalde Police Department. And, like, I don't know if it was, like, active cowardice or maliciousness. I don't know if it was just them completely dropping the ball on what kind of situation they were dealing with. But someone somewhere fucked up. And there are kids dead now because of it. And that's no good, as Sonic would say.
Yep, that's no good at all. And as far as giving up guns because it would help people, I don't think giving up would prevent stuff like this from happening. Maybe more background checks and more like...
You're roboting, Lilith. You're roboting out. Is your internet being taken down by the feds?
Oh no, baby. The feds destroying my closing statement.
There's always the argument, like, we will stop the purchase of guns so that criminals can still have guns and you can't. And it's like, well, that kind of sucks. But at the same time, this guy got them legally, right? So, you know, what do you do in that case? If you bought the guns legally, what else can you do?
I think more security in schools wouldn't be a bad thing. Like, we protect our politicians and behind metal detectors and steel doors. Why not protect our children?
I mean, true enough. But man, it just sucks that we're at that point because not having an armed guard at school made school like a different environment, you know?
I don't think America could just take away all guns like in Australia because it's a very different country.
Or Canada, Jesus.
Or Canada.
Yeah,
like,
I know what you mean.
They're banning pistols there, aren't they? In response to something that didn't even happen in Canada.
Actually, what they're doing is they're making it so that you can't buy, sell, or trade them, or import them. But you can still own them. So I guess 3D printing it is.
I guess so. A 3D amendment.
Anyway, guys, that's the end of the show for today. Hopefully next week we'll be back on the live stuff rather than doing the pre-recorded stuff. Oh, dude, it'll be June next week. We could do, like, the Pride Month corporate pandering discourse. Or we could do the kink at Pride discourse.
No. No. Torture Lilith Month.
I think we had, like, back when Scrump was around, we had, like, an old one. I think it was, like, 2 years ago? 3 years ago? Listen, if you don't want to bring your 5-year-old to a public event where a dude is taking a shit on another dude's chest on a float, then you're a bigot.
Yes, but...
It's 2022.
But that's not happening. Stop it, Dev. The Discord is terrible. It can only make LGBT people look bad no matter what.
Hey guys, I'm here recording this after the fact. I'm actually recording it right before I leave town for a few days. So if anything else happens, I mean, I'm going to be unplugged. I'm not going to know what's going on. But in between Lilith and I recording this TubCast and it coming out, there have been a few small but interesting developments that might shed some light on where this investigation is going to go going forward. So it's no secret that the Uvalde Police Department has really tried to spin this as their officers acting heroically, that they were doing everything that they could, you know, ignoring the fact that there was a massive mistake, with them labeling the situation as a hostage situation and not an active shooter situation. And that's gone over with the public like a bag full of lead bricks, especially as more details have come out. For example, it was reported on the San Antonio Express that the initial account of the events, where the gunman walked up to a door that was propped open by a teacher, that's not exactly true. What actually happened was, and apparently there's security camera footage that verifies this, though it hasn't yet been released, was that a teacher heard the crash of the car, went outside, saw the shooter with the gun hopping the fence, and said, "Oh my God," kicked the rock out of the way of the door so that the door would close, and then closed it behind her. The door was supposed to auto-lock, but did not. The report that the door was propped open and that the shooter was simply allowed to go inside came out of the Uvalde Police Department, and that turned out to be inaccurate. In light of this, there are reports that the municipal government of Uvalde, as well as the police department, are no longer cooperating with the probe into the events. and that the police chief, Pete Arredondo, the guy who actually ordered the officers to stand down, this guy's been missing ever since the shooting, but quietly behind closed doors, he was just sworn in as a city council member. So there's some shenanigans afoot. I think the various sides of this are moving their pieces, and we will see what happens next. I think this will be a story worth keeping your finger on the pulse of. All right, there's your post-recording dev update. Thanks very much, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. I love you.